Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another castover. It's the month of August, and we are here to do numero 70. That's right, we are on to 70 castovers. Can you believe it? Well, I sure can, because Cosmonarchy Brood War for life! Oh my god, bro. Anyway, we got Solstice playing. It's been a long time since his debut in a match against Kian, now known as 3 Crow, at least in terms of tournament placements. And we have the Shambler, and they're going to be testing a very unconventional map, as you can see. This one is called Sequestered Synagogue, and we have 4 games here, so all 4 of them will be played on this. And we'll just see how it goes and take it as it is. In this stage, I assume that since Shambler is playing... he's playing as Zerg in this particular matchup. I believe this one was mislabeled because it said like TVP or PvP or something. This might be one of the weaker games of the set from what I remember, because I actually thought maybe Shambler just didn't send a Zerg match, and that's why there was none in my opportunity, or in my the list of things that I had to do. So I think he might just end up getting owned by Skithercores or something. But we'll take the opportunity to at least survey the map, because the map itself is an incredible amount of character. It's going to be maybe the main character of this one. So we have a vestry and an anchor blocking this position such that you can't access this Nidus. I believe this one goes straight over here, and that's the link. There are also some Niduses over here, some Niduses... Well, this is actually not a Nidus, this is a Larvosk, because it's going to take a little bit longer for you to kill that if you want to deny Zerg the ability to expand their static defense repertoire, as well as an anchor neutral over there. And there's this Nidus. I assume these are cross-map, but again, I don't actually know. I think maybe they were actually vertical. Some Niduses are going to connect the gas-heavy bases up here and stuff. There's a bunch of neutral excisants in the general area, as well as some high-ground geysers. And the reason for that is that once you hit tier 3, you can use those advanced workers and maybe grab some extra gas. So some interesting and high-concept activities happening here. It will be a Skithercore opener for Shambler, so I don't think we'll get to a point where it's tier 3, because that's just what I was told. I was told not to expect too much out of this one. That being said, I actually don't know what Solstice is up to. I mean, I know he's obviously been hard at work. He's actually made a Quasilisk recently. Looks fucking stellar. So really happy about being able to put that into the game in, I would imagine, relatively short order. We got to figure out a solution for making sure that we have we implement the egg graphic without having to re-render the egg, because then we would have a different egg graphic for all of the other, Zerg units that are not yet remodeled, etc., etc. So that being said, we need a birth animation, we need a cocoon animation for it to mutate into something, and then I think we need a burrow animation. Although he's got the burrow animation done, it's just, it needs to be he needs to process the burrow mound graphic. So anyway, he's been hard at work on that front. I don't know how much work he's been able to put in on, doing something a little bit more on the side of playing the game. I myself have this problem where I'm busy working on the game, so I don't play the game. A Warden has been started, and there are 2 Ecclesiasts here. So this actually doesn't look too bad whatsoever. He can keep his scribes alive. The Skithercore has immediately been sassed and has now been forced off, losing a decent number of HP. I guess I can use this opportunity to talk a little bit about some impending balance changes to Zerg as well. The Skithercore will lose an armor, so it'll only have 1 armor, and the Iziracore will gain 1 armor. And that is going to be, I think, significant enough in the context of changing up a little bit how that balance goes. I think the Iziracore will probably lose at least 10 HP, maybe 20 HP, but maybe I'll just end up dropping them to 0 armor pen, instead of adjusting their durability whatsoever after giving them +1 armor, and we'll just see how things go. If they're too oppressive, then we can always change that. That being said, I think on the other side of things, the Hydralisk is probably in a little bit of a weird spot. I could see maybe dropping its durability, but then also dropping its mineral cost to 75 again. This Warden is not long for this world. This is a little bit of a misplay, and he doesn't even cancel it, so he's just outright lost 200 minerals because he's going to lose the pylon as well. No response there just yet. And yeah, I mean, Shambler's now going to go for an expansion. But I think he might still be warming into the game or something, because he's a little bit slow to the punch, it looks like. A Cenotaph on the way, so that Hierophants will obviously be very effective at dealing with the Skithercores. Speaking of, I would really love to start getting some more Striders in terms of graphically speaking, right? Now, he's got all of his ground units over here, so I think he's going to lose this pylon, which actually isn't the end of the world because it's only 50 minerals, but he's still not responding, so I actually don't know what's up with that. Did he lose track of himself here? He's going to go for a Matrix. Over-committing on defense, I think, particularly since that's going to delay his Nexus up at the top. So, We're thinking about that. Now, this map doesn't have the largest air distance, so I can actually see why the Skither Core opener would be unsettling, perhaps. If this is actually where you need to place this structure, that's actually kind of funny. I think maybe... I don't think he's blocked himself in here, but it might be a bit awkward. He has to repower his stuff. By the way, this is probably a question that, if all people, I think DF will know the answer to this question. Why do some Protoss structures not display unpowered when they are unpowered? Does anybody know the answer to that question? Because I don't know, and I would like to know, because I would like to fix it so that they always say unpowered when you click on them. I don't know why they don't. Anyway, I also still have to, update the pylon graphic so that when you select it as a witness or as a replay spectator, like replay watcher, you'll see the pylon power field when you select it. So some more notes for me to do later on. There's a decent number of Skither Cores here, and considering the Warden and Matrix, considering the Warden over here and the Matrix over here and the Nexus over here, yeah, okay, you're going to be low on mining in terms of, like, it's not going to be as efficient. But is it realistically going to, you know... Is this realistically going to be able to close the game? I'm actually not quite sure. But he's abandoned his post, and the Matrix isn't done yet, so now the pylon will be focused down. So this is just a little bit awkward. He's a little bit slow on the draw. He can zone out these units, and yeah, they're probably going to kill the Matrix here, because it's not very durable. You know, additional expensive losses, not really being able to affect change on the map. I mean, his ground forces did make Shambler feel like he had to go for a double circuit, and he is building Hydras back here, but he's also just harvesting gas so that he can pump out more Skither Cores. That seems to be his game plan. He's, since I totally missed this one, he dove directly on and tried to pick off these units, and obviously there was no unit production for Solstice, so a little bit on the awkward side here, but again, you know, we at least got to take a look at the map and see what silliness awaits us in the future, and talk a little bit. This is almost a mini podcast episode with some game happening in the background. Oh, we fixed this bug too recently. So when you hold position, well, we fixed the bug of them having infinite range, but we also fixed the bug of them not tracking onto a nearby target that is in range when they're hold positioned. So that's actually pretty effective and really nice. I can already see that air units are going to be really effective in this map because of this ramp. If Shambler can take nothing from this game, I would suggest that he goes for... Yeah, there's like way more skits there. So I can suggest this ramp gets expanded, particularly because of units like the Protoss Riders. Like, it's just a little too much there, so... Not sure what's going on there, but definitely something that it feels like you can't really move too many units through. So if you're trying to defend against air, like this is gonna, with ground units, this is going to bias it even further in favor of air. So I don't think that those balance changes we were talking about would really take too much of an effect for the outcome of this particular match. But it is something to think about in general as we continue to shape up the balance and the, you know, attune to the early game. Another general point I was thinking about lately is that maybe your first unit military timing, despite being pushed back somewhat significantly by the early game changes and the pacing changes and stuff, maybe that could even be pushed further back. I don't really know what that would look like. You know, would it mean that the tech structures and production facilities in the early game just have a higher time cost? I was a little bit reticent to do that because it did feel like if you needed to tech switch at some point, or you needed to get a production facility that was a different one, like it just punishes you every single time. Obviously, it's more of a significant punishment for something like the Terrans and the Protoss than it is for the Zerg because they just get one tech structure, but maybe they would get a slightly steeper tech structure time increase. Or maybe they would just get the same tech structure time increase, but their units would also get a slight increase in time. I'm not sure. I have to think about that because, you know, that's something that obviously scales throughout the entire game, particularly in the early stages. And if your early game units take a long time, particularly a Zerg, well, why would you ever make early game units at that point? They already kind of get outscaled and outclassed by future units in the later stages. So I am thinking about some of these things. I do want the game to be a little bit more... I want it to be more possible to actually, you know, scale out of an early game and not have any build order losses in particular, assuming you can scout and then respond. Like, I want there to be enough general utility to any build order that you don't go, like, super specialized or what have you. But some stuff to think about anyway. And on to the next game. You boys know what's up. Back with more of our cast over here, our 70th cast over, and now we've swapped places while Shambler has rolled Terran. Solstice continuing with Protoss, drops the customary GLHF, responding with U2. One of my oldest jokes when I was playing Starcraft 2 is I would say GLHF, they would say U2, and I would say, the band? What an asshole I was. This sip sponsored by old asshole me. If you like Old Asshole Me and other such anecdotes, remember, there is a link in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. So, Solstice is dropping a pylon in his main. I think it'll be neat. I really want Nexuses to be able to provide power fields. But that kind of conflicts with one of the other revisions that we were planning, so I'm not 100% sure about that one. That being said, something to think about anyway is the idea that, yeah, okay, you've got your pylon. Yeah, okay, it covers some distance. But what else is it going to do, where else can you build a pylon? I think maybe in the early game as Protoss in the current rendition, you might actually need a pylon closer to your ramp or somewhere else for more space that isn't occupied by your Nexus and gonna wall in your resources. So Solstice mentioned that he doesn't play RTSs too frequently, so he might not be able to respond to much of the advice, or he might not be able to use that to improve per se. But he's scouting. He's building structures. He has some fundamentals, I think, pretty clearly. Even in that game where he was taking a long time to respond and maybe taking a while to repower his structures and stuff, it probably looked a little silly to some of the people who have seen maybe some of the higher level plays that we see at tournaments and whatnot. And, based on that, I would say this is probably a fairly steep skill matchup disparity, right, in terms of what Shambler has. But Shambler's worst race is Terran, so if he's playing random and he rolls this, or I'm actually not sure what the context was, there is some sense to thinking, oh, hey, that's something to think about. So, and that being said, I don't think Solstice is a million miles away. I mean, his APM is a little bit low right now, but that doesn't mean everything. So, we do see the Vulture out first. That will be scouted and confirmed, and the Vulture will even get a kill. Hey, check this out. We got kills now. Isn't that epic? So that's pretty awesome. The Draconin will stand guard over the ramp. It's funny that this is the ramp that's double wide and this is the ramp that's single wide. It's like, have you ever tried to respond to threats that are airborne? Well, maybe if somebody does it to him, he'll realize and update his map. This map, actually, the construction of this map is better than a lot of Shambler's previous efforts. Not only does it have some doodads here and there, but most notably it has, somewhat reasonable and obvious pathways, like lanes of engagement. I do think he could clean up some of the areas and make them a little bit less, it sounds weird to say straightforward, but it does feel like, you've just got these islands of Niduses. And I don't mean islands from a sense of, oh, they're not connected by land. I'm talking island in the sense of, this is a conceptual island. It's just off in the middle of nowhere, and there's not really much of a path to it. In general, I would strongly, advise that, aspiring map makers make functional maps that are sort of accepted into the pool, they qualify from needs testing into, the main 1v1 folder, or at the very least, even the non-standard folder. But if you can qualify into the main 1v1 folder, or better yet, the competitive pool folder, that can be something to think about, because that means that you've successfully surmised how to make a standard map, and then you can start breaking the rules. And the connection that I have to the vassals, oh, sorry, not the vassals, the Niduses, there is a vassal out. There's actually two vassals out. And they'll even harass this Mason. And in fact, there is a Goliath here, but will it respond in time to stop this Mason from dying? It looks like it will. But you never know. No, not quite. Nope, it's dead. Owned! And then it even gets away with only 5 points of damage. Absolutely unimaginable. But yeah, the thing that I was trying to get at there is, I look at the context of the, when we were looking at something like a map that has a bunch of Niduses, and it reminds me of the level design, or lack thereof, that is present within things like the, absolutely slap. It's present within things like the installation missions, the micro missions that are in Blizzard land, where they just have teleporters. And that isn't really good for level design, because you're just basically saying, well, I couldn't make a level that actually seems sensible to me. So then instead I'll just, get absolutely slapped. And tell the player to, basically fuck off and just accept the fact that this is the state of affairs. So this match looks like it's going to be in a pretty good spot for Solstice. He does have the 4 Draconins. He's getting some Ecclesias and some Manifolds. I don't know if he's done a flyover with his vassals. He's done a little bit of harassment, just a little bit of, it's mostly just annoying, right? However, there is decent map control with the Vultures. There could even be more of them. They don't have any more mines or anything. And a star pad has been started, which is at the very least probably going to be used to scout, could be used to drop, and this base is very vulnerable. I do like the rally of the manifolds over here to cover any air threats. An Astral Omen is on the way because Solstice is interested in throwing maybe the Gladius out at him because he made that model. I did some reshaping of it, and it probably does need some changes here and there, but just to be fully on board. But actually, funnily enough, Solstice recently was updating the Aurora and the Panoptis. I don't know if this version has that, so we might even see that later on. But the update to those sprites does end up looking pretty reasonable, I think, for general improvements. On the Shambler side, it looks like he could get into the habit of shift ordering his Masons after construction, so this sort of thing doesn't happen where they're just idle for a while. Not sure if he'll correct that. Looks like he figured it out. Is going for a quarry on the other side. I played a game against Mesk earlier today before doing this castover, and it's really interesting to me. I accidentally lifted my ministry as his scout came in, and I landed it. Like, thankfully, he couldn't, like, block my landing. That would have been absolutely atrocious. But I started the landing sequence, and he question marked me. And I just question marked it back, like, what do you mean? This is totally normal. It's because, what we would really like is the opportunity to just be holding shift or something, some keyboard modifier, hit the key for the button, and then the structure instantly starts building it. That would be the most ideal situation. Maybe it would be alt instead of shift because, like, shift is for queuing orders, so you wouldn't want to, like, mess around with that muscle memory per se. The layout of this base I don't think any units will get stuck here, but this could be improved just in general for flow. You could, like, be building downward or something. It's going to be an Exemplar first out of the Astral Omen. I think the Manifold is... Oh, it's over here just tickling stuff. Nothing really doing, but he spots the general army composition. So he's a fairly Goliath-heavy. Anseal means that there is indeed the opportunity to get slapped by some air units, and these anchors are being tickled. I think this Manifold might have even been hit by one of the mines, or at the very least it cleared it somehow. I don't think that this mine has been being able to spot, but I think because of the attack, he's definitely been aware that it disappeared. Like, if it just blows up, it's not going to send you a notification. I've been thinking about that too. Like, should it just always say, unit under attack or whatever, even if the mine detonates? Like, should that still give you a little notice? Or should, like, because it's an interesting nuance, but I don't know if it's the kind of nuance that we want to, build the game around, so to speak, or have be a very significant marker. But for now, I think we'll just leave it as it is. It's an interesting quirk of, like, at the very least, if you face tank the lobotomy mines, considering they don't do damage anymore, if you do that, then maybe the player doesn't get a notification that you engaged their units, and therefore, perhaps you're, like, clearing the mines for free, in a sense, if they're not in a position to punish you. But before, you would never do that, because obviously spider mines did damage. So it's a little bit interesting. We don't see an attempt at expanding anywhere, but he is going to go ahead and try to clear this anchor. These ramps are hell for something like a Dracodon to get through. He does at the very least, use his Ecclesias to supercharge his Dracodon's shield, so it will eventually die, but not before clearing out everything else. Now, this Nidus, now that we can select it, does indeed go all the way over here, so that will give you a little bit of intel on how that works, and I think these anchors are just going to be garrisoned by the Goliaths, and that will allow Shambler to hold relatively fast here. The vestry is going to be taken out. This is just to make pathing up here a little bit cleaner, and maybe also unlock this area for him to be able to build some defenses there. You could imagine a couple engrams or something might be able to fit there. You'd have to blow up the Nidus probably, but that might not be the end of the world. An anchor on the high ground over here behind the resources. There's reasonable amounts of turret room. It's a little bit awkward, but that's something that I've been trying to harp on for people is, hey, if you're making a map for CMBW, you definitely want to leave turret room, just like in normal Starcraft, but, it might even be more... well, I guess it's less important because you can build turrets in the mineral line without, like, moving all your workers out of the way, but it might still be ideal because then you can, at the very least, have, fully efficient mining in that context anyway. The anchors are moving forward to establish a little bit of a line of scrimmage, so to speak. And yeah, that's yet another anchor being used to ward off this Protoss force. Back at home, 2,000 minerals being floated. There is an army of air units, well, I'll say a small squad of air units on the way, just hanging out up there in the top middle. I do like that based on the town center vision, you get a nice, clean vision of all of these structures on the islands. However, I will caution, I think a Phalanx could reach this nexus from here. Shambler might want to tighten this area up so that there's no opportunity to, like, drop anything over here. I think maybe on the inverse, you could, like, land a Watchdog or a Sentinel, or, like, drop a Scribe or use an Artisan or something, and then immediately go into, pile on into Warden, or something like that for defense purposes. But I don't think that it would be very good for, like, general use. Oh, we did hear a Simulacra split, but at this stage, he's not really making the engage. I feel like he could do some damage here, but Solstice is finding it a little bit difficult. The Ancient does end up getting popped, so that's pretty good, but he loses a Dracodon and a Zealot, and one of his Sims is bloodthirsty, out for blood, trying to kill that 9 HP Vulture, which he will need 2 shots for, and instead he's just going to get popped. So he will clear the Lobotomy Mine anyway. And there's a thought. Should the Simulacrum Auto Vitality not take place while the unit is stunned? That's an interesting idea. I don't know what happened with the Zealots there. Maybe he kerfluffled his attack move key. Back at home he has a Grand Library. Now going to try to take the engagement. Doesn't want to kite back towards the anchors. I think that's his main hesitance here. He does have a decent number of Sims that have been growing during this battle. And he's sort of kept his money low, but he's queuing a lot of units. So I think that's where that's coming from. This Vulture is still spotting. Can't see whether or not there's a base over there, but they at any point could unload and confirm or even harass. The Exemplars, meanwhile, have started to come in here, and they have definitely dismantled some workers, made the worker count in the favor of Monsieur Solstice as he engages on the other side of the map while Shambler is trying to be busy over there. Pulls his Exemplars back, and the engagement continues. I think, honestly, that was the most damage that Solstice did with his ground army, and it was because he didn't try to fall back in the middle of the fight. So that's kind of funny. Because it kind of tells you, like, oh, hey, you know, maybe I could have just done that. Now, he doesn't have a Cenotaph, so he has no way of getting Legionnaires to, like, more easily engage on this. And unfortunately, he does just lose one of his Exemplars to the Anchors. I think one of the things that he could have done, I'm not sure what he was talking about for no attacking notification. One of the things that he could have probably done is engaged with the ground force to tie up the Goliaths in that anchor and then attacked it. The other thing that he could have done, of course, is drop a Stargate and you know, use a land effect or something to disable it if that's what he wants to do. This Exemplar is going to go ahead and path up. I think he forgot about the Gladius. He's attack moving and then attack moving here, and then obviously he can come in and try to tickle the quarry or maybe attack the gas workers since there's nothing over there. Funny that there's a ministry over here. I don't know if that's going to, like, you know, lift off somewhere or what, but it's kind of interesting. There are some anchors over here, but only one of them has anything in it, and that's pretty useful, actually, for Solstice. However, the army rotation is in here, and while there is nothing in that anchor, as he finds out after blowing it up, he leaves with somewhat bruised and with a lost Zealot. Technically a good trade in terms of minerals spent, but not exactly what you would want. A witness from that embassy without any rally point did spot the Wraith and get it wounded, and a third base is finally going down for Solstice. But the worker count is back in the favor of the Terran. He is having a little bit of a difficult time, but I forgot to mention, this one has the selection extender, so that's why you're seeing larger armies being moved a little bit more cleanly by both players. This Wraith, just barely won't get angered by those units, and a couple Zealots will be able to start tickling this with the bulk of the army out of range and out of capacity. It's going to offer him a look into this site. Now, there was no Atlas, as far as I can tell. It's about halfway done, so Shambler is quite late on that. So many minerals. Definitely could be doing something with that. These are on move command instead of attack move, which is definitely a pretty big flustering. But that being said, the bulk of the army is here, so not too bad. A lot of idle workers. So, like, I mean, I want to say that's like 12 or so workers. So at this point, there's a decent amount of parity between the amount of workers and in terms of active mining. That will change pretty soon now that he's sending them back, but it's still kind of funny. Again, if he was back at home, queuing up a lot more units, continuing to build stuff, using the Exemplar during the whole time to force a repair, at least a single one, now he can start to kill a lot of the workers, or at least clump them up, right? Well, he does a lot of damage, and he can start continuing to harass them. More Goliaths are on the way to try to deal with this. The Watchdogs are going to lift off as well. Oh, he gets one more shot off to get another Mason. Not bad. So, you know, he's effective harassment. He is down about 15 workers at this stage, but he can start to fix that just by, you know, using his embassy and his nexuses. Something that Mystery Meat suggested a while ago is combining the command card when you select nexuses and embassies. When you group select them, like, obviously there's not really a rule that says, hey, if you can, like, there's not really any other case where you can train the same unit as another structure from like 2 different structures or whatever, but also one of those structures can train more units. That's the only time that ever happens is with the embassy. So maybe just conceptually it's a little bit silly. It's like a conceptual island, similar to how I was describing the map location islands that were happening over here on this map. But generally speaking, I would say, I look at that and I think, like, yeah, well, honestly, in terms of UX, it probably is a good idea to collapse those command cards into something. So, you know, just to standardize the habits across multiple races, like, that's training workers is supposed to be something of a consistent feeling. Now, Shambler hasn't been too good at reestablishing map control using the lobotomy mines as a bit of an early warning system, but he is threatening an attack here. And I think, once again, Solstice is just really paranoid and allows the ledge to be used against him. At this point, his melee units have to single file, and he has mostly melee units here. So I think he's really just been a little bit too timid. This force absolutely crushes the Goliaths. The Goliaths do nothing to this quantity of Zealots and Amaranths, especially with the support of Ecclesiasts keeping them alive. Even with the bad pathing and bad engagements in terms of the surface area that his melee units have to offer onto this particular subject, even with the decollision and everything, which I'm not even quite sure how that... I think the Sims did that because they split. Yeah, that is not going to be enough either. So he's actually just going to chase forward there. He should have maybe body blocked it. Yeah, there you go. Doing a little bit of extra damage. And now going to maybe try to collapse onto this base back over here. There are some sentinels being placed, but they're not in the right spot to answer an attack from the south. And that could very well be where Solstice wants to go. He should be continuing to build more workers, because he's still down in number. Not that he can necessarily know that. He could also transfer from his main, fully saturate this, take this base maybe. You know, his opponent doesn't really have anything tier 2 beyond the starports, and they're building Valkyries, it looks like, to ward off further Exemplar nonsense, which hasn't really been a thorn in his side, I don't think. It did. The first attack killed way more than the second attack did, or maybe there was a subsequent attempt at a raid or something at some point, but I don't think so. This Gladius is still just forgotten, forlorn. Yeah, honestly, I think Solstice is still in control of the tempo, because Shambler isn't really sure quite so yet how to navigate the mid-game tier as Terran. Unfortunately, Solstice does not expand his production capacity to welcome the amount of money he has. Like, again, his number of units could have been probably 2x, and at that point he could have just A-moved and killed all of the Goliaths, all of the Sentinels, completely disregarded everything. Certainly if he attacks from the south, it'll even stand a better chance. Could also saturate his ridge over here. I don't think he's done that. We did see that he was capping his aquifer over here. The thing is, if you task workers onto this thing in this capacity, that actually instantly makes them start harvesting from it. So that's something to think about, and definitely allows you to... You know, obviously you're losing the efficiency of that worker, but in this case you were losing that efficiency anyway. So it looks like one of them was there, but this one was not. So it's actually undersaturated, and that's something that he can probably keep in mind. I think established players in the space tend to do that. Now the Goliaths are out of position to answer this attack from the south. He really likes his squadrons of Zealots and Amaranths, and it's not a bad idea. A Mason has been sent through this Nidus. Actually, an Ecclesiast will stand vigil over this position, so that's not too shabby. I would have preferred a Zealot as opposed to an Ecclesiast, but that's just because the Ecclesiasts have a lot of utility in the middle of the battle. These units will confirm the positioning of all of the Goliaths, and now he knows that he can just go ahead and take the charge, try to collapse, and this force can't deal with the Goliaths, but down here, Shambler is losing a lot of tempo, a lot of possibilities. He doesn't finish the job, and now these units need to come in and try to once again collapse upon the Goliaths. They're not going to win the fight versus this number, but they can certainly, distract or do some damage. Here come the rest of them. Again, slowing them down, allowing him to maybe kill this captaincy. Indeed, they will. Doesn't end up getting canceled, and now he can fall back. He's using the death of the Ecclesiast to speed his army up and the withdrawal. You can see what Shambler was talking about. At some point he mentioned that using 24 Goliaths at once or whatever it was quite satisfying for him. Now, Solstice has not continued the fallback, so he has to be a little bit careful over here. His Witness is spotting this Wraith. I don't know if he'll ever do anything about it. He's mostly trading ground units. Suddenly getting some Atriuses and Dracodons. I think, honestly, it sounds silly because obviously Goliaths are pretty good against air, but if he had gone for, a nice pack of Exemplars to support the battle while the melee units occupy the Goliaths, okay, you can either pivot to try to attack the Exemplars that have similar range to the Goliath. Like, if we look at the Exemplar, it has 7 range. I think the Goliaths also have 7 range, yeah. So you have identical range on both of those units, but do you do that, or do you... Well, he actually cancels that immediately, even though Shambler did not go for it. See, that's a case where, you could have waited until it was found before it was actually canceled, because who knows, maybe your opponent will make a mistake just there. A couple of Wardens are over here, but only one of them within attack range, and I don't think that's going to be long for this world. Some Atriuses are here as well. There's just so damn many Goliaths. But I think once the Atriuses join the fight, if the rest of the units can go with, Solstice needs to pull the trigger on the engagement, and he can at the very least thin the herd. He's got the defender's advantage with all of his units coming out of the structures, but he's just refusing to attack for some reason. There we go. He's pulling the trigger now. Also, remember, this is the first time I've casted a replay with a selection extender. I don't know if it's breaking or not, but it looks like it is actually just indecision from Solstice. And he does indeed power forward. However, the Goliaths have been able to withdraw, bruised and battered as they are. There is no more front line. That needs to be considered. No more production facilities or, indeed, defenses have been started back in this base. So, might be conceding it as he attempts to take a fourth base in a different location. Atreus spinning despite the double wide ramp. Yeah, I think that there's just enough here for the for Shambler to not be able to finish the job. A lot of these units are going to be bruised, but, you know, at this stage, the Simulacrum splitting and decolliding his units is not helping him in this situation. So, yeah, I think this match was much stronger for Solstice overall. I'm not saying it's even over necessarily, but he has a lot of floating money. But he did a lot more in terms of map control, and he does have a lot more in terms of general units. I think the Atreuses are in a pretty good spot to continue to punish this. The Goliath's trying to kite forward, focusing down the Draconin because that's the guaranteed damage, but I think there's just too much beef here for the for Shambler to actually win here. Now, these two Goliaths in the back were really low HP. Just quickly selecting the other units to see which ones you can focus is always a good move. It's a habit you got to build over time, and it does require a little bit of mouse precision and I guess mechanical skill as a result, but it's still worth doing. More Atreuses, more Zealots, but I think, you know, you can really tell that the remax of the army was a lot easier for Shambler thanks to his extra production facilities and thanks to his, you know, tech, thanks to the fact that he had the third operational for a lot longer and a lot, you know, maybe a lot more saturated for a lot longer as well. So he just generally has more things. Now, the Witness is spotting this military move out, so he's going to see a lot of Vultures and then followed up by a lot of Goliaths. The Atreuses are totally fine versus the Vultures. However, if they get, you know, the ability to lay aggressive mines, I don't see any engrams or anything, so there's no static defense here that can help out with this push from this angle. And the Wraith is once again scouting everything with only one Witness to Solstice's name. He can't actually pick that off. So he is going to go ahead and try to form a wall, but the Zealots are back here, so needs to watch out for that. It does look like it's just an attack move. The Vulture's not trying to lay any mines. The one Warden that does contribute to the fight is within range here. But yeah, there's a lot more Goliaths than Atreus is at this stage. Hey, look, the Wraith even joins in for the fight before getting absolutely ass-blasted by splash damage. More units can come in and try to isolate this, but there's only the gateways blinking. The Grand Libraries are not training anything. Neither is the Astral Omen, for that matter. I wonder why, because Solstice has so much money, but it feels like he definitely could have done a little bit more in this case. The Gorgons were over here to confirm that base in the bottom right. They never ended up needing to do anything because it got canceled. This Ecclesia is still standing vigil. Oh, there is actually a second Witness, a third Witness even, but he's not really using it. And yeah, definitely having lost this base, it's a pretty big blow. You can see the Qs balloon out. Still nothing out of the Astral Omen. I mean, you have it, you might as well use it. And Protoss also are probably OP on this map because they can access the advanced workers a lot faster. So that's something to keep in mind. I guess versus Protoss on this map, you'd have to enter into like an air management battle. And the GG is called simply based on the fact that there's still so many units and not really enough to break. Well, enough to break Solstice, not enough to break Shambler. And that is that. That is our second match. So yeah, much better from Solstice in that one compared to the PVZ. Again, I didn't know that the thing was mislabeled. I think Shambler mentioned that, but that was like days ago that I downloaded this, so I totally forgot about that. But the game there, I can definitely see a way where Solstice is able to take that. Interesting game. Interesting game. We'll see what he can do in the subsequent matches that are coming up right after this. Let's get back to it, boys. Solstice has rolled Zerg. He's going up against Shambler's Terran. We'll see if Solstice can do it more justice now that he is Zerg. I'm not 100% sure what to expect out of this particular matchup, but hey, if the last games were anything to go by, this map does seem relatively stable in the early game. It just feels like as players start to figure out how to abuse the complicated Nightness network and the ridiculous amounts of extra gas, it'll be interesting to see how that one shapes up anyway, but it does feel to me like maybe there's more to discover about this map. So it definitely needs more testing. And hey, I believe that's the folder it's still in, so check it out if you are interested in playing it yourself with your homies. I don't recommend AI on this map. I assume they just break horribly, but you never know. Some more balanced musings or just strategic musings about things that Shambler is interested in. And it will be a Quasrock opener here. He does not have the new Quasilis graphic, so he will be nerfed because of that. His handiwork not yet in the game for the Zerg race. However, it being a very fast Quasrock tells me well, maybe this will be a very fast game. It is Fulcrum Opener. That is probably your best bet as a Zerg player if you're going to be trying to go for a build order win. The Dark Spring Green Zerg against the Redwood Terran. I didn't check the colors in the last couple, but, you know, all good. So the scout timing is obviously favoring Shambler, but what will he do when he sees no gas being harvested and a Quasrock is here? Honestly, I don't even know what Solstice is going to do. I think this might be the first time he's even played this race. So could have been a little bit of a snappier response to the worker harassment. Does go back for it. Half HP is that worker. Probably unlikely to be a little bit ballsy with it at this stage. And there will be a second Fulcrum, so committing into it despite seeing the Quasrock. Confident in his ability. Now, none of the larva was saved. So in this case, it's just more workers. And again, still no gas. So he could expand behind this. He would have to assume that there's not going to be any early game aggression. But yeah, I'm not actually sure. He goes for a Quasilisk. Again, it's not the new one, man. I'm sorry. It's not done yet. Need a birth animation. Need all sorts of stuff. Thought I had to sneeze a moment. Turns out I'm a fraud. Vulture out. Quasilisk out. Hey, he even aggroes the Mason, so it will die. Killed by a Quasilisk. Shambler must feel sick. So he has laid a mine. He'll lay another one and then be on his way to see what harassment he can get done. Now we're starting to see some gas as Solstice discovers 600 minerals in his bank. Jeez. He's going to go for an expansion. That'll help bring it down. And he definitely needs more units, so he's going to go for a third Quasilisk. Now, Quasilisks will die in 3 hits to a Vulture. Meanwhile, the Quasilisks themselves take, what is that, 9 hits to kill a Vulture? However, they're getting a lot of free shots here because it's just going to be a scout. So it's already halfway done. Halfway there. So I guess it wouldn't have been 9 then. I don't know. It would have been 18. So that's what it is. He got 9 hits on. So there you go. A little bit of harassment. Even gets a second one. Technically traded evenly. 100 minerals for 100 minerals. But it's larva, right? So it probably hurts the Zerg a little bit more. He's keeping up in terms of worker count. He's actually going to stretch ahead a little bit because there's no quarry yet. Another Vulture on the way, laying more map control. It's going to be a two-folk Goliath push, it looks like. Hydrock Den behind this, so not satisfied with the Quasilisk. Ugh, not my Sprite, not my Quasilisk. Moves on to the Hydrock Den instead. We'll see what he ends up getting up to. Is getting the faster expansion of the 2 timings, that's for sure. So he can start to either transfer workers or just build new ones. I think he's getting to a point where he can transfer maybe like 3 or 4 from that base. Obviously, the transfer timing is a bit different since you have full efficiency for the first 2 workers per patch. So only once you get over that would you actually want to transfer workers. And that just means that, you know, in the early game, you probably don't need to do it. That one was not on attack move because it was just rallying down. So yet another Vulture will get into the base, and it will confirm the presence of an expansion. Might even get a Drillith kill. Where are the Quasilisks? Why aren't they chasing the Vulture? Does anybody want to tell me the answer to that question? Okay, well, it'll be Hydras. No workers yet on that expansion, so I think by the time that Shambler starts to mine from his, maybe Solstice will also have started. That's another thing that is like, wait, what's happening? He could also just decide to cheekily ignore this and go full into an attack, but obviously there's an anchor on the way, so we know that that wouldn't work very well. He does have a decent amount of... Yeah, he has pretty decent moves here as far as his worker counts and as far as his military. So I do feel like Solstice is in a pretty commanding position. He's also got a lot of bank. He can go for another expansion. A stockade on the way. Pretty much no gas coming out from the Shambler. He's spending it all. He's got double quarry now. He can start to pump out more workers. So Solstice can either choose to expand for a much bigger macro game. I think against Shambler's Terran specifically, you can more comfortably go macro as Zerg, but also just in general against Terran. You know, as long as you have some way to manage their, scout onto their base later on and stuff like that, I think you can do quite a bit. No base over here just yet for Solstice. Has a lot of money, has some idle workers. Does transfer those ones up to the natural, so that's good. And remember, in CMBW, you can rally eggs. I didn't catch to see if whether or not that lobster mine was... Oh, no, it's still there. I think that's the lobotomy mine that was there the whole time. Not garrisoning any of the neutral anchors this time around. Obviously, he sent his vultures in for early harassment. He got 2 quasis and 1 Droleth for his troubles. Some Skithercores are going to be coming. We'll see what those can do. There's watchdogs all over the place, so I'm going to say not much, but at the very least, like, really, what you can do is you can just keep tabs on what's happening here. 3 quasis are in the anchor to take pot shots at anybody coming by and basically just keep vigil of the north approach, which is not bad at all. Anchor is going to move its way over here, and again, the skiths aren't going to be able to do too much, but they can get scouting, they can get, you know... They can confirm that it's a macro game. Take a base, maybe take a Nidus and take a base. All sorts of fun stuff. You have to destroy the vestry if you want to do that with a worker, though. I think. Maybe workers could even fit through that. I don't know if that's true, though. Watchdog is here. And it is no joke. I imagine the Goliaths are indeed scrambling. Just goes for a single shot and then backs away. I think he probably could have committed to at least kill 2 Masons, despite the single watchdog, and then walked away with the bruised ones with a little bit of micro. It's not going to be accomplishing too much because the Terran, again, does have double quarry, and I think he's confirmed that with the second fly-through. So that's going to give him a little bit of an understanding. Hey, this is definitely going to be a little bit more of a macro game. A lot of Zethra-cores are out. If some of those were to turn into Vorvor-cores, maybe even all of them, considering the mineral count that we have for Solstice at this stage, I could easily see him overwhelming the front gates. Some investment was made into a Vestry, into a Shaman. That's not going to be upfront firepower. There's only 7 Goliaths in terms of firepower. I say only because there's a lot of potential for more units to come in. So I really wouldn't be surprised if, you know, a lot of these turned into military units and then were rallied out. Another base is being taken, so again, it's maintaining the macro advantage for now. Obviously, the Mason counts are going up. There's 3 worker counts. 3 worker production queues, rather, and only 3 larva production queues for Solstice. He's just going to go for the Iral Iris, so that's what he was banking the gas for. But again, we could be seeing, you know, macro hatches, you know, 4 more bases, something crazy with all the minerals he's got. We'll see how that one plays out. Looks like he's going to go for some Spraiths to cover his backline there. His Skithercores charge in valiantly just to see what's going on, and he does confirm that it's Cleric, Shaman, Goliath as the composition. Mostly Cleric Goliath is what we're seeing. Now, really, I think in this case, you want to like patrol from here to here or something like that so that you can maybe catch the units coming through and then maybe overwhelm them with the Zeth Hydra. Some of those should have been Vorvs already, and there should be way more of those units in general. But maybe once the Tier 2 is up, that might be an opportunity for him. He's going to go ahead and pull his units back. He's got a bunch of Zeths. You could even do a burrow trap here. Definitely should be making more units. And he is, so that's good. See some idle workers in the natural still. That's going to be a worker. He does go ahead and garrison the anchor to try to zone him out. We get to see the lovely recolored graphic when a Zerg unit fires, and when Protoss fire, it's blue. So that should give you a little bit of an idea of what's going on there. He's going to try to out-heal the position. I think it will be successful. A whole lot of Vorvs are on the way. He's making even more up here. So the anchor is taken out, and it does buy him some time. We'll see if... what does Shambler want to do? He's going to go ahead and deploy the Shaman a little bit further up. There's a lot of Vorvs, though. This could easily go so south. Now, he can't really do anything from this position on the ledge, so that might not be too bad. What could possibly happen over here? Now, Tier 2 is done, but he's not using it for anything yet. He could go for a Muthrock. He could upgrade either of his tech centers. He's just flapping his wings. Just flapping his gums. So the Shaman deployed, plus the Cleric, probably on hold position, if I had to guess, is going to guard against any military units coming in from there. You could just go across the map and start tickling. I think even with all of the Vorvs, you could just walk straight across the map and certainly do a lot of damage to Shambler. I mean, he's only got single target, right? He is getting some vultures now for some mines, presumably. So the window is fast closing, but there's a decent number of Zerg over there. Zerg here, in fact. Starting to saturate his base on his third base in that context. Still has idle workers up here. I don't know if those are the same ones or not. And now we'll be going for a higher tier structure. That's the Muthrock Spire. Can get some Protathalors for the range. I still think Bactylisks would go super well because obviously the Clerics can't heal the Goliaths in that sense. Losing 2 Hydras for free is not good. Definitely needs to continue saturating the space. I think getting more Macro Hatches, spending your money, all that sort of thing. Some defenses over here. This is super vulnerable again. Even with like 3 anchors over here, the number of Zeths is just ridiculous. Obviously, the Vorvs turn into Zeths after they die, thus increasing the DPS. So, something else to mention. And right now, yeah, it's all's quiet for now. A little bit of map pressure from the Goliath positioning in a very silly fashion. The other thing you could do, by the way, is just pour them through the Nidus down here. Suddenly overwhelm this position. Like, what? How did you get here? And teleports behind you. Some Izira cores, helpfully spinning. The SimCity here for the base is very tight, so you're going to get that more often because of that. Something that I was telling Veek, or maybe Veek was telling me, he wanted to make it so that when you rally do a rally point on like Hatcherosks or Larvosks, the larva actually move to that offset. That would helpfully, you know, allow the units to spawn on that side, right? I'm not sure how difficult that is. A lot of mines being deployed. Spaced out relatively evenly as well. It's a lot of APM to do, but it will help the zone off the attackers. And it looks like maybe something like that is fomenting here. 2 more Hydras die for free, as well as an Izira core and a Droleth. Very unfortunate. A lot of these mines are going to get cleared out before any DPS can come their way, I think. But there's some juicy stuns. Only one of these anchors has anything in it, and yeah, there could have been way more. I actually don't know where the rest of them went. Oh, they went. Did they go through the Nidus? I'm not sure. I can't quite tell. They definitely overwhelmed the position, though. Very nice. Very Nidus. I would just kill this Nidus, to be honest, but that's just me. Confirming the comp, it's not anything different. The Atlas is done, but no Tier 2 tech is on the way just yet, as far as we can tell. A lot of money floated from Shambler, way more, obviously, for Solstice. I guess he can just go straight to Tier 3 at this point, like he's not a million miles away from it. But it's just because he's not spending, and obviously Shambler's being rather inefficient in his comp choice against this force. It will be Mutas. Okay, so Mutas can overwhelm this position, for example, quite easily. There's a Ministry on the way. Do we have a Tier 2 structure? No, just more Ministries, no add-ons at all. Why build the Atlas, homie? You know what I mean? Maybe some Sentinels. He's getting a Reservoir. His only Tier 2 tech so far is the Reservoir, and his third. Absolutely tickled. Oh, the Mutas are now down here instead and are going to be used for defense. Oh, no, never mind. Look at the Mutas, man. Look at them. They're going to go straight for the base up there. I don't think they'll force a withdrawal, but if they do... Like, this is actually a really scary number of Mutas. So they will 100% eat this base. What are the Goliaths going to do? They just end up going on a... It's not a move command. It just looks green because it's a turreted unit that I had selected. So that is an attack move command. There are some Izira cores down here to try to help. More Mutas. Will they be pulled? Some of them up here are not being used, so a little bit slow on the draw. More of them can come in. This is starting to look like the end of that one Emperor's Flight mission from the Brood War campaign with the number of Mutas here. So we got battles on 2 fronts. They're still sicking them in. There's not really that much in terms of anti-air here. Some watchdogs are hurriedly being constructed. Certainly can't repair at that point. So a couple more will be finished sometime soon. And the Izira cores have overwhelmed the Goliath and Vulture composition. Watchdog does finish, but it's short-lived. Cleric's healing the Masons desperately, but he looks around his base. He's got nothing, just some Vultures and an anchor. And only himself to blame for not constructing any other Tier 2 tech. The Mutas absolutely overwhelming his ability to produce. So I think actually Solstice has taken a game. Pretty cool. Now, Shambler does have some anchors over here, but again, the Atlas is trying to evacuate. The Mutas are chasing it down. Some Goliaths are here, but they're just going to get absolutely slapped. Hey, I'm glad that we got to see some play from Mutas. It's been a long time since we've seen them. Izira cores are also on the way, just trying to spend his minerals. He can go for Tier 3 for the absolute destruction of a man. Killing the quarry on the way out. than the vestry afterwards, it looks like. Hey, technically, you could use those to kill all of his units, so it makes sense. They're threats. Sentinel's on the way on the low ground. Evacuating to his third base, having lost his natural and now his main. Ministry will fly off to the corner. He doesn't believe he's finished just yet. He doesn't believe that it's over. Still no tier 2 structures other than the Muthrock. Still no tier 3, even though he can afford it. Will be taking a 4th base instead. Now where's he going to go? Does he remember that there was a ministry? I'm sure he saw it on the fog at some point, but... He will finally get off to lava form. It is coming, boys. We will see tier 3 Zerg here. Now, isn't that something? I think so. Honk. Mutas on their way to deny that base down there. Ministries can take a beating. Mutas only have 2 armor pen and only deal 8 damage, so they're dealing 6 damage a pop here. But there's just so many of them that I actually don't think that Ministry is going to escape. He can try to pull everything with the Goliaths, but this is exactly when the attack force from the top comes. It's only tier 1 versus the Sentinels. Some pretty good juicy shots. You can force target them. But at the same time, yeah, there goes the Ministry. The Goliaths didn't make it all the way over. And now the Mutas can fly over here and try to attack on 2 fronts, if they're even going to be needed, because, again, the Goliaths moved down here to try to garrison some anchors. It just wasn't enough, so pretty solid stuff here from Solstice to try to finish the game. Obviously, it is against the weakest race for Shambler, and he calls GG, and we will move on to our final game of the set. Well, that's pretty neat, I think. Again, nice to see Mutas. It's been a while. The homies, the OGs, always good to have them. And, yeah, again, Solstice, you could have spent so much more money so much faster, and you would have just absolutely destroyed him. I mean, Shambler won in terms of units, because I think he just killed a lot. Let's see what he got. Well, no, actually, I'm not really sure how he would have won on the unit score, per se. But, obviously, he didn't mine as many resources as Solstice. Like, Solstice had so much money. Could have expanded a lot faster, could have teched a lot faster, could have used that tech a lot faster. And yes, Shambler did build his Atlas and then built nothing with it other than reservoirs and eventually some Sentinels. But, well, you know, again, Terran is his weakest race. He's still learning. He's practicing it against, you know, maybe greener opposition who hasn't played a lot of games like Solstice, right? So it makes sense in that context. It's interesting to me that both of these players had a bit of a kerfluffle with their tech and their spending. So let's see if that continues off into game number 4. We are back. Our final match of the set here. The Shambler taking on Solstice, and it's a TVT. So we'll see how this one goes. I'm not sure. It looks like maybe they either Shambler rolled T and is telling him that, or selected T and is just referencing that, or Solstice also selected T, so they're going to be playing a TVT. Solstice told me he wasn't super fond of this game. I think this is the one that he was telling me about anyway. We'll see how it goes. This is also coincidentally the largest replay of the bunch, so I predict that this particular match will be like, who knows, like 30 minutes maybe. Anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying this particular matchup. We have just concluded. I took a break in between the 3rd and 4th game of this cast to do the Iskatumesk versus DF series. It was a banger, although there was a bug in Game 3 and a crash in Game 5. So that's pretty unfortunate because we did have to replay Game 5 at that point. But either way, we are in for a treat, I think, when we take a look at some of this stuff. So Shambler will go ahead and scout first. So if you're wondering why I might be a little bit more hoarse than you would expect, that's because I just casted that series and it did go the distance. So we do have 2 more series later on today as of the day of recording. But of course, by the time you're watching this, it's the 1st of August, bro. Like, that's ancient history. Ascension 3. Look on to Ascension 4 coming in a couple of weeks to a YouTube channel near you. And of course, we also have to shout out the latest person to donate money to the coffee, because I'm doing the sponsored sip now. So that's Alexander. Thanks, homie. By the time we see this video live, maybe that's not still the latest person, but he's a cool guy. He's a homie. It's going to be a star pad first by Solstice. This is very unconventional, and there's already going to be 3 Mavericks out before his first unit even pops. Does look like the Mason will eventually scout this, and there's no unit coming out of it just yet anyway. So, going to be double Wraith. You don't want to queue units in general in CMBW or in RTSs, right? You want that money to be spent on new structures, because you could have dropped the second star pad if you're going to go super committal, or obviously like a stockade or something. Or even a fulcrum, as a matter of fact, if you hadn't queued that Wraith. So, a star pad will commence from the Shambler. This game looks like it's going to be dumb. I'm not going to lie. Shambler's going to go for a watchdog here, I assume. I mean, he's idling. Oh, he's typing. Never mind. And this will be an anchor then. No, it is a watchdog. Okay. The Wraith is on the way, and he delayed his Wraith, or his watchdog, so he could type. So he might lose a worker for this, which would be perfect, because that's exactly what Shambler deserves for typing. But I don't know if it's actually going to happen. There it is. No! No, you left it on 1 HP! No! You could have killed it. Maybe he did kill it. Did it desync? Maybe it desync. Well, I don't know. I'm not so sure. Like, it shouldn't... There's not really a reason for it to have 1 HP. So I think that's actually just like a really rare bug or something. The race should definitely have a kill there. What the hell? That's spooky. Yeah, that would make sense, because then Shambler never, orders it to move. So I guess that guy is dead. That's the ghost of Mason's past. And it will be a Maverick drop instead. Now there's 2 Wraiths, a 3rd Wraith actually, and a Goliath on the way, about halfway done. So by the time this gets here, it's not really going to accomplish too much. The Wraiths can actually chase the Trojan down while the Goliath deals with the Mavericks, with some help from the Masons probably. In fact, this Wraith might even catch it on the way. Oh, never mind. Yep, there he is. Starts to tickle it. Pretty good armor on this, but is going to just go ahead and fly over. The Goliath is already here. The stim is not going to help it too much. Wraiths do get focused down. They are the easier targets from the Mavericks to deal with. Waiting for the recloak. And there it is. Trojan is evacuated. So, killing 1 Wraith, doing some damage to the others, and obviously to the Goliath. That's going to slow down any would-be attack, or at least it should, but of course, Solstice is bloodthirsty. Another stockade coming up over here. Anchor with Cyprians is going to ward off any Wraith play as well. And there's even going to be a Watchdog here, which will allow the Mason to get harassed to death. There you go, canceled. Wait, what happened to the 1 HP guy? Is he here? Is he building something? Is that not a desync? Wait, where is it? Maybe he expired. I think he's gone. Oh, there he is! He is mining! Wait, so he did live with 1 HP. What the fuck? I don't know how that happened. Oh! Should have repaired. Well, anyway, there's an expansion coming for Mr. Solstice. The RIP is called. The Manor RIP. Manor RIP. Dude, your fucking Mason should be RIP. What happened to this guy? He's got 1 HP. What could that have been? How would the Wraith deal not 1 less damage somehow? What? I don't get it. No, I don't know. Maybe he issued like a double-click command and then it brought him in. There's like a couple things that could have been, I guess. Who knows? Who knows, man? I'm confused. Dazed and confused. Another drop is going to be on the way. 4 Cyprians. Goliaths will eat that up just fine. Wraiths guarding for an expansion attempt. More Cyprians on the way. And Anseal. Anseal's pretty good against Goliaths, as well as Wraiths and anything that isn't splash, right? So at least a Mason will die here. Charlie. No, he's just going to try to elevator them into a better position, but the Wraith here is going to start tickling them, and the Goliaths are in a... well, they're not in a really great position, but they certainly can do something. That's 2, 3 Masons dead. Solstice still has more Masons than Shambler, so this is not really the end of the world. Ooh, just barely. 1 more shot on the Trojan would have done it. And that's with Shambler cheating death with 1 of his Masons, so... Maybe there's a miracle chance for 1 attack to do 1 less damage. Maybe that's what we did. Not what we did at all, but, you know. Treasury finally on the way. With this quarry over here, we are going to be seeing a decent amount of gas income. Obviously, we're going to see some more Masons over there eventually. And another Fulcrum on the way. The Goliath has made it all the way over here and is really hell-bent on killing this Trojan, but isn't acting on that. Dude, turreted units in Brood War are some of the stupidest things I've ever seen in my life. Just saying that. Just saying that. Well, that being said, we obviously are going to be seeing more action out of this TVT, if you can call it action. With the expansion and the worker count advantage for Solstice, I would expect that Shambler is going to be in an awkward position for quite a while. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, I'm guessing that this game goes long. Both players get diadems out, really drag it on. We sort of pull up and just relax a little bit while we watch absolute massacres occur. This Mason did end up dying. The Cyprians are going to come up here with the Ant Seal and clean this up. Wraith is going to go ahead and scout and see what's going on over here. The Goliath can obviously respond to that. A worker will die. Up next will be the Wraith. But up next will be all of these Wraiths. It looks like a Cyprian died as well. So he traded the ability to harass his opponent with his Wraith for all of the Wraiths that his opponent had. Technically, that is like a cost-efficient trade. But Solstice has shown that he doesn't really mind rebuilding his Wraiths, so is that really going to be enough? Tasking his workers off to the minerals is a good start. He has one less worker than he could to have 2 workers on each ridge. Something that people have only started to realize, myself included, now is that you can fully saturate your gas with 3 workers. It's just the 3rd worker is less efficient. Tightening up his fulcrum positioning so he can add a scrapyard. That's Solstice's MO, it looks like. And some anchors are being built and landed over here so that the Cyprians can be warm and cozy. A second star pad to presumably build more Trojans and more Wraiths. And the Cyprian drop is going to come in behind this little shed. The Goliath is in position to tickle the Trojan. It is full HP. But the Wraiths are just about to leave as this is happening. So, a little bit awkward. Hey, that Goliath has decided, hey, I'm going to start, going to kill that Trojan. Oh, just as he loads them up, too, he's going to have to force unload them. He's doing so much damage to the Wraiths, but he doesn't kill any of them. And the Masons all evacuate, so now they're going to have to get tasked back onto the mineral line and the ridge line. Still way ahead in the worker department. His Wraiths now going across the map. No defenses over here. Actually, no units over here. So this could be quite effective. He has to pull all of his workers immediately. The Wraiths should instantly jump on those Masons on the gas and kill as many as they can on their way out. Maybe now they can tickle the quarry. No, they're just going to fall away, see what else they can get up to. Cyprians have some of them unloaded from the anchor, presumably. No, actually, I guess he just waited to train those. Now going to go ahead and resaturate, but, just a couple of worker kills. Put him back in his place. He's only got... actually, no, that's not true. He has the same number of... mineral or worker queues, right? The quarries and ministry. He just isn't building as many workers for whatever reason, so... Probably a spot where he's just not used to that particular game flow, because it is a little bit different for Terrans. An Ant Seal, and another one in the queue. Anchors for the Cyprians, Watchdogs in general. And it's going to be Goliath with a Matador. More Matadors, more Goliaths, more Fulcrums. Pretty much just normal play here, it looks like. Solstice is floating a lot of minerals again. Could expand, could do a lot. Add a bunch of stockades. Add more scrapyards to pump up blackjacks. Queue a bunch of vultures as well. That could also work, I suppose. I say it's not good to queue units in the context of like, hey, if you're on your game, you can just build a bunch of, production facilities and then use that to your advantage instead. And that is true. The problem is, like, at the same time, at least queuing the units gives you them eventually, whereas not queuing them and then forgetting is also pretty bad. This Ant Seal is on a collision course with the Goliath army, so it's not going to be long for this world. Instantly slapped. That's an expensive loss, and in fact, that's the only Ant Seal he has, so he might need to make another one. Unfortunately for Solstice, his Ant Seal ends up getting slapped as well. He's got another one back at home, but not going to be super effective at dealing with this wall of Cyprians, which he did scout. So I think he's just going to sit here and say, okay, well, maybe I need to tech up. He has the... he's actually bordering on the money. Shambler, meanwhile, has the gas to do it, but doesn't have the minerals, so now has to constrain his spending a little bit if he wants to tech up to tier 2. And Solstice just needs to wait a second, continue to add vultures to his army. He has a ministry on the way for his 3rd base. Wraith continuing to scout the bottom half of the map. And Solstice's units are going to be over here calmly assessing their options. So how quickly do either of these players jump on the opportunity to spend their money is the question. I mean, clearly we see Shambler doing his best to wait for his 600 mark. He is a little bit slow on the draw and could certainly do it. And now Solstice is just now at the gas mark as well, but I don't think either of them... Yeah, they're neither of them are actually paying too much attention to that. Actually, Shambler just spent a bunch of gas. Oh, he did. He got his... Okay, so he got his Atlas and a Fulcrum, and I guess he just had that extra... Oh, yeah, that's right. He had all of the extra gas. I forgot about that. Well, the Anciel is here to detect the Wraith, but not really for... I was wondering where those missiles came from. I was really confused by that. All right, so Tier 2 could have been done or started like a minute ago, or maybe longer than that for Solstice, but it's not going to happen. He's busying himself with laying a minefield. It's an important thing to do, but obviously in a mirror matchup, the sooner you get your tech, the better, pretty much no matter what. Ministry is done, and the Atlas is under construction. He can obviously deploy some phalanxes here to break the anchor line if he so desires. Even Cyprians, right, in anchors, right? That's 6 range, plus 2 from the anchor, plus 2 from the cliff, goes up to 10 range. Well, phalanxes in siege mode have 14 range. So that is still not way more and can easily outclass it. There's only one Fulcrum here for Shambler, and I guarantee you it's going to be for a Madrigal drop. Which, honestly, all things considered, Solstice is not super well, protected by. The Wraith is continuing to scout out the area, so it's going to work out quite nicely for Shambler because he's going to know the layout and know he can drop over here, or he can probably drop over here. Now, there are a couple of extra Watchdogs, but if the Madrigals get deployed, then you're probably going to be in an okay spot. The other thing, too, is that obviously Phalanxes on the high ground do get +2 range over Phalanxes on the low ground, so that's an area where you can suddenly be in a pretty good position. The Ministry is done, but not being mined from just yet. Atlas is just about to finish. See what Solstice wants to do. He's just continuing to poke around. He's going to get shot at by the Vultures, or his Vultures are going to get shot at by the Cyprians. Maybe you didn't want to take that path, is my thought. Still not harvesting anything, still not getting any Tier 2. So Solstice is not sure how to spend all of his money, it looks like. He's going to actually go for a charge. And you know what? For all intents and purposes, he's doing way better than I thought he would. He's actually going to be able to kill an anchor. I didn't think he was going to be able to do that. So he hms himself. Indeed, that does not work. He has enough money to replace all of those units, so he certainly could try again. What else does maybe Solstice want to do? He's still got nothing over on his third base here. Yep, the Madrigal drop is indeed going to be underway. So if they are already deployed, you can load them, but it fills the whole Trojan. Otherwise, you can fit 2 to a single Trojan and then try to deploy them. Currently, their deployment animation is quicker than it should be, quicker than I would intend for it to be. But, we'll get to that eventually. A second Fulcrum was actually made up there, so there's actually extra production for stuff like that. The Wraith continuing to sort of move back and forth will soon have to be reissued orders. It's running out of orders, guys. Very slowly, it looks like Solstice is starting to activate this base down here. Getting an anchor. Nothing on the high ground. Cliff advantage is enormous in CMBW. The fact that you can obviously use that to set up a really nice advantage for yourself versus attacking players is definitely not something that you want to be shy about. Now, in this particular case, the surviving Goliaths are about to get tickled a little bit. So one of these anchors will actually fall. Hey, he could even hop into that anchor, but, well, he can't do that because he's dead. But, it's the thought that counts. More Wraiths canvassing the area for Shambler. And it looks like we might be seeing nukes. At least we have the Covenants out. Oh, by the way, something to point out is... for example, if you destroy these 2 Covenants, you can actually build a stockade and claim this. Might be OP for Terrans. That might be something that needs to be thought of, is if you, just place some unbuildable doodads under these or something. I mean, it's a little bit hard based on, where they are, but yeah, maybe this layout just doesn't work. Or, the other thing you could do instead of the Covenant is another structure, maybe not an add-on, but just a neutral production structure or something that can't be claimed in that sense. I guess technically you could claim anything with mind control for Protoss, so I can probably just protect against that. if it's not already protected against. I mean, yeah, actually, that's not true, because neutral is marked as an ally. So you can't actually mind control allied units, right? The phalanxes are in place, but not on the high ground, so they won't be benefiting. And obviously the magical drop is underway. It's interesting that he went for an unload there, maybe in case there were defenses or units back here. That would at the very least do some damage. Anvil is complete. We saw the captaincies out earlier, and some madcaps as well. Love to see the treatment that was made to them by Solstice himself. So at the very least, if he's going to die by units that are his own handiwork, that have his own fingerprints on them. He even updated the magical, can't you tell? And here they are. I don't think they're going to get any kills here, at least for the Masons. Check that out. Okay, they might get a couple over there, but yeah, all things considered, that was way less effective than I thought it was going to be. However, the Anvil has just about finished producing its nukes. This should be changed to missiles, probably. Oh, and there's the money shot. The Trojan did fall during this period because of all of the watchdogs, but I think it got all of the units out. So some phalanxes are going to have to move over here. They can just, in tank mode, just kill this, right? So an attack move is just totally fine here. Although you might wanted to use the other phalanx, too. Oh, the Trojan didn't die. It made it out. Maybe it, like, landed over here and then unloaded them, and then they moved forward. A lot of Masons did die from that, but the heavy armor on the phalanx there helping out quite a bit. Oh, I could have selected the madrigals to see how many kills they got. Well, you need skill to spectate this game, too. Hey, the Eidolon should show kills based on the amount of kills a nuke gets, so if we end up seeing that, then that'll be cool. Captaincy. I can tell why Solstice wasn't exactly fond of this. He doesn't really have the game sense of TVT exactly to know, or just versus T in general, probably, like, how do I break that? Or, you know, how is it possible to break Cyprians in anchors, right? Because previously it was like mech in anchors, which is not as effective for defensive purposes. It's more of like an emergency thing. Or, you know, maybe a single target thing. So, I don't think the Anseal is still left. Oh my god! Absolutely annihilated. When you cast the initial channel on the nuke, it does decloak you. There's a pretty significant mech army over here as well. Well, he's got to restart the nuke as well. The Morning Star, as it is. A lot more madcaps coming. Look at the money. You can tell that Shambler is trying to keep his spending down. Meanwhile, Solstice on a measly 5.5k. Does have a lot of phalanxes. Could add a lot of vultures to this if he wanted to. Getting some Valkyries, interestingly enough. Preemptive Valkyries are a thing that have definitely been, we'll say, active in the game before. Madcaps are continuing the march. Despite Solstice's work on the textures and etc., I think it's clear that the walk cycle still needs some additional effort. Shambler will go ahead and activate that Mason. I was waiting, holding out hope that he would remember that he sent that through. And another Eidolon is on the way. A Ministry is going to go ahead and load over here, or land over there. I'm loading the right words into my brain, and he's loading Madcaps into a neutral anchor, so there's that. Blackjacks are here. They could staff that anchor at the very least. Now, when you see the Eidolon, you really need to instantaneously think to yourself, oh shit, I gotta worry about, you know, grabbing an Anseal for detection, because otherwise I could get nuked, and maybe I'm not in a good position to do so. He's trying to be an asshole on his own map, and it is going to work. So while the siege line is being established here, Madcap anchor is neutralized. This is going to go off. You get to see the kills here. Oh, look at that. It's actually just out of range, but it will apply the irradiate, so at least there's that. So maybe we don't actually see kills on the Eidolon. Maybe that's broken. That was something that I think we might have patched, or I think iQuare probably patched that a long, long time ago. Well, okay. Based on that alone, once these phalanxes get deployed, we should be seeing a bit of a better spot here. Oh, look at this. The Eidolon March. It's happening. It didn't really work. But I respect the idea. And that Sentinel's going to go ahead and go kaput. Well, you nuke my reservoir, I'll nuke yours. That seems to be the idea. Ministry is going to go ahead and get exploded. I think even if it lifted off at this point, it wouldn't be able to move anywhere. It's basically immobilized by the Gorgons. Now here come the Madcap March. Obviously they can deal with, you know, shrugging off those shots a little bit better, but it still hurts them quite a bit. And hey, look at that! Some lobotomy mines were placed preemptively a long time ago, and the minefield coming back to at least help them out with some of these Madcaps and draw some of the aggro. Some Ahmeds are brave souls, but they will indeed be put to rest. Actually, the Ahmeds will get out somehow. And there are no additional phalanxes in the area. This is where, again, the spending could have been a little bit better and more preemptive. The only air units that exist for Shambler are Ancials and Trojans, and I think there's like some Wraiths scattered around over here. That's funny. As a result, you have to think to yourself, what's up with the Valks? Oh my goodness, I've never seen so many units queued up. For those who are unaware, and I'm saying this very late into the video, but the orange label on the thumbnails is indicative of the educational content within. I didn't do that for this thumbnail, for this video, because Solstice said that he's not going to be able to play too frequently, or he doesn't play frequently, very frequently, to the point where he can't really put advice or feedback into practice. And as a result, his skill level will probably remain relatively similar, but at least he'll build additional familiarity and game sense for a lot of this stuff. So I think that will increase his aptitude level and his performance. But, you know, I'm going to focus mostly on like high-level strategic decisions and like just the obvious. Like if you see over 1,000 of any resource and you're not saving for a tech up, you might want to think about how to spend that money a little bit more efficiently. And I know it sounds counterintuitive because you think, well, I have to spend APM to attack my enemy and all this other stuff. But honestly, just having a bigger army is often enough once you understand core, you know, strategic concepts. The Vultures are trying to peel for these phalanxes, but the minefield has been taken care of. At the same time, the phalanxes are shellacking a lot of the clumped up units here. And the Savants have been drawn upon. Not a bad shout with the Vultures, but there's just too few units in general, and the phalanxes are also a little bit slow right now. I don't imagine that'll change, but it's something worth noting. Both players up to 4 bases. Only now is Shambler recognizing that there does exist gas in that 4th base in the bottom. But he's capped geysers in the main and the 3rd base, so that's in stark contrast to Solstice, who has capped gas in the main and the 3rd base. Well, I tried to make a point, but I was just wrong. This anchor was never put to use, so now the Mad Savants will garrison within it, and the phalanxes will start to fire upon. It's forcing a lift that is technically within range, so you definitely want to do that if you can. And the Valkyries are getting tickled to death by Savants and Madcaps. Thankfully, there are some Blackjacks in here, as well as some phalanxes, so Ahmed is not going to strike back just yet. But forcing the lift on this base is pretty considerable. Now, if he's been watchful, obviously, his units can witness over here that there's not really that much that can attack air, so the Gorgons will keep watch and force them back. He does have to watch out for the Savant projectiles because they can pierce. I don't remember how much armored pen the Savant has, actually, so maybe we'll look around to see if there was another one trained and is idling somewhere, but it doesn't look like it, so I guess we'll just have to... Oh, there is one right here. So, yeah, they do have 2 armor pens, so they don't penetrate Gorgons, but it's still something that you have to watch out for. In fact, they don't even fire off their projectile, funnily enough. The sound, rather, doesn't fire off. They were actually shooting. But there's enough Gorgons in here to break this position just nicely, and they don't even lose a single one, thanks to the penetration rules. Look at that. Spinning your wheels in mud! The stacks are too damn powerful. There are some Cyprians over here, but they also don't penetrate the Gorgons, so if they do end up heading down there, the Air Force for Solstice can easily crush the position in the bottom. And it looks like they might be heading in that direction anyway, clearing out a Wraith. There are going to be some anchors and watchdogs being put here, but it's only Masons coming in for immediate reinforcements, so I do think that the Gorgons are going to be more than effective here. They do have to, well, Solstice has to remember that they don't actually pierce, and I think... He might not remember that, so that's something to keep in mind. A large number of Madcaps and even Mavericks are showing up here, and the rally point looks like it wasn't actually caught for those units, so that's kind of funny. And yes, Solstice at this stage is indeed still floating a lot of money and can tech up to tier 3. Meanwhile, I haven't really been keeping tabs on Shambler. He has tier 3.5. Does he have anything that actually uses it, is the question. I'm going to say that's a big fat no. He's got the structures, but he doesn't have anything that the structures unlock. So. No nanite assemblies, no iron foundries with their add-ons, no diadems, nothing. Well, he does get rid of the space over there and starts to relocate his stockades. Is going to clear some room. He killed a Maverick with his demolition there. And he's not going to use these anchors to isolate this position over here. DF's handiwork here. More than enough to burst through the anchors. The omnidirectionality of the phalanxes. The problem is, you've just lost all your vision, so pretty soon you're not going to be able to do too much. Now, that can be repaired, so that won't end up dying. Stockades to scout. This is actual TVT material right here. And if he's not careful, I mean, the stockades can also do some pretty big damage to him, assuming diadems ever get placed. Parthenon, nanite assemblies. So the Parthenon is probably going to be for taluses so that he can build diadems on the islands, but it could also conceivably be for something a little bit more conventional. Just a Pythian to transport all of his madcaps or something. What you have to remember about the Pythian is it unloads at the normal speed of unload. It doesn't unload at the rate of something like the Trojan. So that actually is going to be somewhat negative for, you know, if you're unloading at a hot zone, right? One of the stockades has fallen. Actually, two of them have fallen. There's another one that died all the watchdogs there. And the third one is going to follow suit. But, you know, pretty reasonable information gathering. Sees the mantles, but no tier 3. Still no tier 3, in fact. Solstice could afford it. And instantly queues up 1 million cataphracts, so never mind, he cannot afford it. Cataphracts are okay versus bio, actually, so going up against the madcaps with that is not going to be a bad shout. But the real concern comes in the form of the nanite assemblies once they get rolling. Nothing out of the Parthenon just yet. Vultures and Phalanx is getting tickled by anchors on the high ground. Obviously, they can outrange the madcaps. Right, 6 range, so it's up to 10 range, but the Phalanxes can deal with that. Probably doesn't want to face tank like that. Probably wants to use like a lifted structure or some sort of air unit. Here come the Mavericks to try to storm the gate. That was grossly unsuccessful, though. Now, this one has Eidolons in it. Those can deal with the Phalanxes. There's no armor on the Phalanx when they're in deployment, so definitely something to watch out for. But they all died, so it's all good. He really is just allowing his vultures to check for that, but the Phalanxes are not in range. A very slow and APM-intensive move, meanwhile. The other thing that the Parthenon is good for is obviously on this map in particular, there's loads of geysers and stuff. So if he's curious about expanding his gas income, then he can use the taluses for that purpose. Cracking the code, Solstice realizes the armor is advantageous for him. Uses that to face tank instead. A lot of madcaps are here. They do get issued a stop command. More of them are gathering. Minotaurs are out. Talus is remaining idle. No diadems. I'm quite disappointed in the lack of diadems, boys. Heracles are seen as the successor to Ahmed. Frontline, somewhat durable. I would say fairly durable, but this is a mech army, so it has a lot of single target DPS. And a Mason even comes in here for good measure. Hey, he can build a diadem, I think maybe right there. Forcing a withdrawal. This is before the Minotaurs even make their presence known. They're rallied over this direction, it looks like. And a lot of taluses are still here, but Shambler's not too interested in going after them. I really want... Obviously, Shambler will post in the comments. I'm really curious if that Mason at the beginning of the game did actually live with 1 HP or what. Dude, What is going on here? He's face tanking it with the mines. I guess it works, but kind of funny. Deployments here, cataphracts as well. Plenty of room here for Solstice to hold off the bio hordes. But again, the Minotaurs are going to be much more durable. Particularly versus the cataphracts, which I think are his only big source of anti-air. He's got some Valks, I guess. Look at that. Just a massacre. But the first diadem was constructed. I'm looking for where it was. Ah, yes, right down here. So the vultures are no more. More of them over here. Kill that Mason. Don't let him scare you off. A ministry being put over here, and the Niduses are being evaporated, so the Talos themselves can lay claim to this base and start harvesting from the excisant, of course. I noticed that there isn't really any attempt at dealing with or launching any additional nukes. I mean, I think he lost all of his Eidolons because they were in that anchor. So he can't do that. He has this base, but isn't really noticed that it's not mining yet, and rallying some more Taloses. Building some more Minotaurs. Gorgons, Valks, sweeping through the lands, laying siege yet again to this base before it can get set up. Hey, I've got all these Masons. Well, not for long, buddy. The Phalanxes and Cataphracts and Vultures are here, but the Minotaurs are in no position. Now, there's only a couple of Valks. Once those Minotaurs were shown, I would have liked to see more of them on the way. We still don't have Tier 4, or Tier 3, rather. He's now going to do it, but he's very late to the party. Another shot towards the bottom. No other diadems being assembled, it looks like. Ministry is completed over here, but really, how much is that going to give you? He's actually got an excess of gas, so at this stage, he should be harvesting more of the minerals. Small skirmishes all around the map, it seems. The ministry has been placed over here so that he can harvest with the Taloses and, of course, trying to exploit that part of the map, but I think he might be realizing just how silly and APM intensive that is. More Minotaurs. More. Moritars. But there's Gorgons, there's Valkyries to slow them. The Gorgons obviously slow them down, the Valkyries catch up. However, I think there's enough Minotaurs here. It's going to be really hard for the Gorgons and the Valks to get anything done. Neutral anchor is dealt with. Only the vestry remains. Cataphracts will absorb some of the damage, but the forecastle really shields them from a lot of the incoming shots from those Valkyries and Gorgons, especially from the Cataphracts that don't have much armor pen at all. Remember that forecastle increases the armor by 2 for the purposes of calculating the final damage, so this is basically treating them as if they have 5 armor for the Cataphract since it only has 1 armor pen. Which means it's dealing 5 damage instead of 10, cutting the damage output in half. Cataphracts are very slow, about as slow as Minotaurs actually, but this base is also being taken. More Madcaps being moved around, seeing what he can get. Magnetars on the way as well, for Yamato, presumably. And also to yoink the units further closer to him. Again, he doesn't really need these bases. He's pretty far ahead, and that base is just about done. So, back down to 3 is going to be our man. He doesn't really have an answer to this. He's getting some more Valkyries, but only off of 2 starports, and his Daedala is still not quite done. Ramses, not a bad choice. I mean, they're spammable, and Minotaurs are good against spammable things. But, in the mud. Probably use that to isolate exactly where he needed to fire the shot or to place the Nidus, but it's just funny that it was still wound up being there. My goodness. Well, it's actually not that many Masons are over here, so... Unfortunately for Solstice, I think the Valks are going to be evaporated before long, and he's still trying to make his units move away from the diadems. He's going to pan back to his base and realize that he's under attack. Is rallying his Goliaths and his Ramses up, but probably not going to be enough, and there's even a diadem over here laying siege into his units. I mean, it's enchanting the Goliath anti-air attack range, for sure. Ah, this rally point is in the wrong spot, so he has to correct his movements there. Didn't focus fire the right Minotaur, but at the very least we'll get one more for his troubles. The GG is called. The diadems continue to rain terror from afar, and that will be our game. Well, that's also our cast over. This might be one of the longer videos that I end up uploading, because it was 4 games, and Well, this one was almost 40 minutes. The second one was about 26, and the third one was around 20. In terms of the overall video length, of course, I think the games might have ended a little bit sooner than that, but I talked a little bit. What I can say about Solstice is that he likes to have money. What I can say about Shambler is that he needs to continue playing Terran to improve. And what I can say about that map is that it feels like kind of something of a standard map, but then with Nidus thrown in on top. And I also feel like it's probably not very satisfying to actually build like ministries or treasuries or whatever in those little island inlets in the bottom and in that sort of thing. So maybe building, or harvesting gas with the air units and stuff, that might be fine and satisfying enough. But the actually building in those little islands feels like maybe it's a little bit silly on the bottom. And the top obviously has the potential concern of reclaiming the add-ons for free because you're Terran LOL. So that's something else that needs to be dealt with. But overall, I'd say it was some entertaining games, and I hope that Solstice is enamored with the fact that he was able to defeat Shambler in one of these matches using Zerg, and nonetheless using some Quasrock units during that whole process. Quite cool. And of course, Mutalisks. Love some Mutalisks. All right, boys, we'll be back with some more castovers in the month of August, of course, and eventually for Ascension number 4, featuring the Selection Extender. Until next time.